The night of December 31st, 1502. For war captains walk smiling into a palace in Senigallia, to seal peace with the man they betrayed. The door closes. Before sunrise, 2 of them will be dead. The other 2 will wish they were.
Wait, they walked in alone, with no guards, into the house of the man they stabbed in the back? Who talks 4 wolves into stepping inside the pen?
Nobody forced them. They were seduced. And that night, 7 signs that expose anyone plotting to betray you were left in plain sight. A young Florentine diplomat watched it all from the inside, Niccolo Machiavelli. The captains watched all 7 go by, one by one, and chose to ignore them. This is the Senigallia trap. Italy, 1502. A chessboard of warring cities that change hands every season. And one piece moves faster than all the rest, Cesare Borgia, son of the Pope, 27 years old, conquering the Romagna city by city. But the army is not his own. It is led by captains for hire, the condottieri. Vitellozzo Vitelli, the finest artilleryman in Italy. Oliverotto de Fermo, who seized his own city by murdering his uncle at a banquet. Paolo Orsini and the Duke of Gravina, blood of the old Roman nobility. Together they won every battle for Borgia. And together they began asking a dangerous question. If Borgia devours one city after another, what will stop him from devouring them one day? October, 1502. The castle of Magione. The captains secretly swear to destroy their master. The revolt erupts. In days, Borgia loses Urbino, the jewel of his conquests. The empire of the Pope's son begins to shake.
They struck first, and they struck hard. But they made the worst mistake there is. They left the lion alive. And the lion did not roar. That should have terrified them.
Any wounded prince would have roared, threatened, sworn public revenge. Not Borgia. He answered betrayal with soft, almost affectionate messages. He said he understood his captains and their complaints. Machiavelli, newly arrived at the court as envoy of Florence, wrote down the first sign: when the offense is enormous and the calm is too, someone is calculating. Borgia offered the rebels a new agreement. He did not merely forgive them, he promised more money, more strongholds and more honors than before the betrayal. Nobody pays extra to recover what he already owned. Second sign: whoever promises you too much is buying your trust, because he plans to collect on it.
And they believed him? Men who lived off deception fell for a forgiveness handed out for free. Greed covered their eyes. They wanted to believe. And while they were signing, something was stirring in Imola.
He who deceives will always find someone willing to be deceived. Niccolo Machiavelli, The Prince, Chapter 18.
The stirring in Imola had an explanation. While signing pardons, Borgia was requesting lances from the King of France, hiring Swiss mercenaries, filling the city with fresh troops, in silence. The captains read the papers of the agreement, but never counted the barracks. Third sign: distrust the man who grows stronger while speaking of peace. And Borgia never negotiated with all of them at once. Separate letters. Flattery for Paolo Orsini. Suspicion planted against Vitelli. For each man, a deal slightly better than the rest. The pact of Magione cracked without a single shot. Fourth sign: whoever separates you from your allies is preparing you to fall alone. Machiavelli wrote to Florence almost daily. In his dispatches, preserved to this day, one warning repeats: this agreement does not smell like peace. But one by one, the captains returned to Borgia's service. The Florentine diplomat was now only waiting to see where the lightning would strike. December. Borgia proposed sealing the reconciliation with a joint campaign, taking Senigallia, a small city by the sea. The captains conquered it in his name. But the commander of the fortress announced he would surrender only to Borgia in person. How convenient. Fifth sign: beware when the other man chooses the meeting ground. December 31st. Borgia arrived with a reasonable request: the captain's troops should camp outside the walls, to avoid brawls between soldiers. It sounded logical. They obeyed. Sixth sign: when someone wants you far from your people, it is not about convenience. It is about control.
4 wolves, alone, walking toward the pen. And the cruelest sign of all was still to come, the one Machiavelli never forgot.
Borgia rode out to meet them with open arms. Embraces. Smiles. Warm words he had never once offered them. He invited them to enter the palace together to celebrate the peace. Seventh sign, the sudden kindness of an enemy does not announce reconciliation. It announces that he no longer needs you. They crossed the doorway. Behind them, the guards closed like a net. In an instant all four were disarmed and captive. There was no battle. There was no noise. The trap had been under construction for 2 months, piece by piece. And they walked right in. That very night, Vitellozzo and Oliverotto were strangled in a room of the palace. The Orsini followed weeks later. Machiavelli records that Vitellozzo, the most feared warrior in Italy, only begged that the Pope be asked to pardon his sins. The man who made armies tremble died pleading. Machiavelli saw it all and wrote it all down, first in his dispatches, then in a famous report, and years later in The Prince. He did not tell it as a tragedy, but as a masterpiece. Because the 7 signs were in plain sight all along. One only had to bear looking at them.
Let us open the notebook. 7 signs that someone is plotting to betray you, exactly as they were written down in Senigallia.
1. Too calm after betrayal. If the offense was enormous and the reaction was mild, you were not forgiven, you were postponed. 2. Promises too much. Forgiveness that arrives loaded with gifts is not forgiveness. It is bait. 3. Grows stronger in silence. Watch less what he signs and more what he arms. 4. Cuts you off from your allies. Divide first, strike second. Always in that order. 5. Picks the meeting ground. Where the other man rules, you obey. 6. Wants you without your guards. Isolating you is never a logistical detail. 7. Sudden kindness before the blow. Your enemy's warmest embrace is usually the last one. Which of these signs have you seen in your own life, at work, in a business, in a friendship? Tell us in the comments, the chronicler reads them all. And if you want more stories where power bares its teeth, subscribe. The next fable is already written.